In this video, I'm going to discuss how to solve equations by eliminating the fractions first. So I'm going to say before I do anything, know that you do not have to solve equations the way that I'm going to show you. There's other ways of getting rid of the fractions just by manipulating the fractions, but here's a strategy that I use and I like to teach because it makes you have to deal with fractions less. So in this first example, I have 2/7 plus 3x equals 5. And what I want to do is I see that this first term, my constant, has a denominator of 7. It's a fraction. And I'm going to show you what the shortcut is first, but then I'm going to explain to you why it works. Whatever that denominator is, I want to multiply each side of the equation by that denominator, because I can do anything to one side of the equation as long as I also do it to the other. So 5 times 7 is 35. 7 times 2/7 is 2. I'm going to talk more in a minute about why that's the case. Plus 7 times 3 is 21x. So before I finish and solve this equation, let's look at this 7 times 2/7. Well, if I'm multiplying a constant or a whole number of 7 times a fraction, I can just put it over 1, and then I multiply straight across. 7 times 2 is 14. 1 times 7 is 7, and that simplifies to 2. Well, you may notice that 2 was the numerator of this fraction. So like here, we ended up with just our numerator. Let's just try a different example and see if that works. Let's say I want to multiply 6 times 5, 6. So if my fraction, the problem was 5, 6, and I was wanting to get rid of that fraction, I'd multiply by its denominator. If I multiply straight across, I have 30 over 6, which simplifies to 5. Once again, it's the same as the numerator. So come back over here. By multiplying 2/7 by its denominator of 7, I'm left with the numerator. By doing that, I now have an equation that's much easier to solve. I don't have to deal with fractions anymore. So I'm going to subtract 2 from each side. And then I'm going to divide by 21 on each side. X equals 33 over 21, which that fraction should simplify if I divide by, looks like I can divide by 3 in my numerator and denominator. I get 11/7. Now, for the second example, I want you to give it a try. Pause the video, I should say. Give it a try, and when you're ready, hit play, and I'll walk through it. Okay, in this example, I see 4 plus 2/5 x equals 14. So I see that my denominator here is 5. So if I want to solve by getting rid of those fractions first, I want to multiply both sides of my equation by that denominator of 5. And I can do anything to one side as long as I also do it to the other. So on the right side of my equation, 5 times 14 gives me 70. And over here, 5 times 4 is 20, plus 5 times 2/5 x. Remember, whenever I multiply a fraction times its denominator, I'm going to be left with the numerator. And in this case, there's an x with it as well. We discussed why that's the case in our previous example. So now I'm going to use the shortcut because we know it. From here, it's just a simple two-step equation. I'm going to subtract 20 from each side and get that 2x equals 50. Then I'll divide by 2 on each side to finish and get that x is 25. So, once again, when solving equations that have fractions, I want to emphasize you don't have to do it this way. You don't have to multiply by the denominator on each side, but if you do multiply by that denominator on each side, you end up with an equation that doesn't have fractions that we showed here. In our second example, we showed it here, and once you have that, it's a lot easier to deal with. So just know that this is a strategy that you can use when solving an equation that has fractions in it.